No one expected what happened that afternoon in one of Brooklyn's toughest neighborhoods. Leonardo DiCaprio, all 7 feet tall, sat quietly on a park bench writing in his notebook. His casual white jacket and dark pants made him stand out even more in an area where most people tried their best not to be noticed. A group of 5 gang members spotted him. At first, they couldn't believe their luck, a DiCaprio alone in their territory. Their laughter and taunts started echoing across the small park. "Hey, rich boy, Daddy's not around to protect you now," one shouted. Another joined in. "What's wrong, trust fund baby? Lost your way to Manhattan?" Their voices grew louder, more aggressive. Nearby mothers quickly gathered their children, hurrying them away from the brewing confrontation. Street vendors pretended not to notice, though their eyes kept darting nervously between Leonardo DiCaprio and the gang. The gang members, growing bolder with each unanswered taunt, started walking closer. They were putting on a show now, making sure everyone around could see them. Intimidating a DiCaprio, some had their hands suspiciously close to their waistbands, implying hidden weapons. That's when everything changed. Leonardo DiCaprio calmly closed his notebook and stood up, and kept standing up and up. The gang members' smirks started to fade as they realized just how massive he really was. At 7 feet tall, he towered over everyone in sight. But what happened next left everyone frozen. Instead of backing away or calling for help, Leonardo DiCaprio started walking straight toward them. His face remained calm, almost amused, as he approached the now uncertain gang members. Their laughs became more nervous with each of his steps, their tough guy act cracking as his shadow fell over them. Some people had their phones out, now recording what they thought would be another viral video of street violence. Instead, they captured the moment when 5 of the neighborhood's most notorious troublemakers started backing up their earlier bravado, evaporating as Leonardo DiCaprio closed the distance between them. Nobody present would ever forget what happened next. The gang's leader tried to maintain control of the situation, forcing a laugh that came out shakier than he intended. "Look, who thinks he's tough?" he said, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. The other gang members shifted nervously behind him, trying to maintain their tough image while literally looking up at Leonardo DiCaprio. He stopped just a few feet away from them, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to their growing unease. "I think you're the ones who aren't ready," he said, his voice steady and controlled. The words hung in the air, making the gang members glance at each other uncertainly. The crowd that had gathered held its breath. Some were still recording on their phones, capturing every moment of this unexpected confrontation. The gang's reputation for violence was well known in the neighborhood, but they'd never faced anyone quite like this before. The leader made one last attempt to save face. "You don't know who you're messing with," he threatened, but his hand trembled slightly as he reached toward his waistband before he could make another move. Leonardo DiCaprio's next words stopped him cold. "Actually, I know exactly who you are, Marcus," Leonardo DiCaprio said, addressing the leader by name. "And I know about the deal you made with Councilman Richardson last week." The color drained from Marcus's face. The other gang members looked at their leader in confusion. The dynamic had completely shifted. What started as a simple attempt to intimidate someone they saw as an easy target had turned into something entirely different. Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't just some rich kid who'd wandered into the wrong neighborhood. He knew things, dangerous things. Marcus took a small step back, his tough guy act crumbling. "How do you?" he started to ask, but couldn't finish the question. The other gang members were now looking between their leader and Leonardo DiCaprio, trying to understand what was happening. The crowd watched in amazement as the neighborhood's most feared gang seemed to shrink under Leonardo DiCaprio's knowing gaze. But what happened next would change everything. Marcus shifted his weight, glancing at his confused gang members, then back at Leonardo DiCaprio. "Let's hear what you've got to say," he said quietly, trying to maintain some dignity. The other gang members formed a loose circle, their earlier aggression replaced by genuine curiosity. Leonardo DiCaprio pulled out his phone, showing them surveillance photos of Marcus meeting with Councilman Richardson behind a closed restaurant. "They're using you," he said, swiping through more images. "Richardson and his friends get rich while your neighborhood stays poor, and you guys take the fall if anything goes wrong." The youngest gang member peered at the screen. "That's why they wanted us to trash the new community center site," he blurted out. Marcus shot him a warning look, but it was too late. "Exactly," Leonardo DiCaprio nodded. "They're paying you pennies to destroy million-dollar projects that could actually help your own people. Jobs, training programs, affordable housing, all gone because some politicians want to keep their dirty deals running." The gang members exchanged looks of growing anger, but this time it wasn't directed at Leonardo DiCaprio. Marcus clenched his fists, realizing how they'd been played. "Richardson threatened my sister's job at the city office when I said no at first," he admitted. "I know," Leonardo DiCaprio replied. "And I know about the pressure he's putting on other gangs too. But here's the thing. My father's projects are going to happen either way. The question is, do you want to keep being Richardson's pawns, or do you want to be part of something that actually matters?" A small crowd had gathered at a safe distance, watching this unlikely conversation unfold. Nobody could hear exactly what was being said, but they could see the change in the gang members' body language, from aggressive to attentive, from threatening to thoughtful. Marcus looked at his crew, then back at Leonardo DiCaprio. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked, his voice carrying a mix of suspicion and hope. Leonardo DiCaprio's answer would change not just their lives, but the entire neighborhood's future. He pulled up detailed plans on his phone. "First, we expose Richardson's corruption. I've got evidence, but I need insider testimony. That's where you come in. In exchange, you get legitimate jobs managing security for all our new projects." The gang members crowded around to see the screen. There were blueprints for the community center, the trade school, affordable housing units, real opportunities, not empty promises. "You want us to snitch?" one asked nervously. "I want you to protect your own neighborhood," Leonardo DiCaprio corrected. "Richardson's been selling you out for years. How many friends have you lost because of the poverty he helps maintain?" Marcus's face hardened as memories flashed through his mind. "My cousin died last year, couldn't find work, got caught up in bad stuff." The other gang members nodded, each carrying similar stories. "We can change that," Leonardo DiCaprio continued. "But I need people who know this neighborhood, who understand its problems, who can make sure these projects actually help the right people." The youngest gang member spoke up again. "You're talking about making us legit, like real jobs?" "Better," Leonardo DiCaprio replied. "I'm talking about making you leaders. This isn't charity. It's an investment in people who know what this community really needs." Marcus stepped forward, his earlier hostility completely gone. "Richardson's got dirt on all of us. He'll come after our families if we turn." Leonardo DiCaprio's response was immediate. "My family's legal team is ready. Full protection for anyone who helps expose the corruption, plus immediate jobs, so you don't lose income." The gang members huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. The decision they were about to make would ripple through the entire city. The transformation happened faster than anyone expected. Within days, Marcus and his crew were working with federal investigators, providing crucial evidence against Richardson and his corrupt network. Security cameras caught the councilman's face when he realized his own muscle had turned against him. The media exploded with headlines. Gang members turned whistleblowers in major corruption case, and DiCaprio transformed a street gang into community leaders. But what really got people's attention was how quickly the neighborhood started changing. The gang members traded their street colors for security uniforms, protecting the very construction sites they once were paid to destroy. Marcus proved to be a natural leader, using his street knowledge to keep the projects running smoothly and making sure local residents got priority for jobs. The youngest gang member, now working as a community liaison, couldn't stop smiling during his first legitimate paycheck. "Man, my mama cried when I showed her," he told Leonardo DiCaprio during a site visit. "It's the first time she's been proud of me since I was a kid." Richardson and his corrupt allies tried fighting back, spreading rumors and making threats, but they hadn't counted on how quickly the neighborhood would rally around their former adversaries. When Richardson's goons showed up to cause trouble, they found themselves facing not just the former gang members, but dozens of local residents standing guard over their new community projects. The most surprising change was in Marcus himself. The former gang leader now spent his days in meetings with community leaders and project managers, his street smarts proving invaluable in navigating neighborhood politics. "Never thought I'd be sitting in boardrooms," he admitted to Leonardo DiCaprio. But hey, turns out intimidating corrupt politicians is pretty similar to running a gang, just with better benefits. The story hit national news when Richardson and 3 other city officials were arrested. Footage of them being led out in handcuffs played on every major network alongside clips of the neighborhood's dramatic transformation. But what really caught people's attention was the sight of Leonardo DiCaprio and Marcus standing together at the community center's grand opening. The center, once a target for destruction, now buzzed with activity. Kids played basketball where drug deals used to happen, and the trade school next door was already at full capacity, teaching skills that brought real jobs to the area. Former gang members, now in professional uniforms, kept everything running smoothly. Other gangs from nearby neighborhoods started reaching out, wanting to follow the same path. Marcus became their guide, showing them how to transition from street life to community leadership. "We used to measure respect by how many people feared us," he told a group of young gang members. "Now we measure it by how many people we help." The transformation caught the attention of city planners nationwide. They came to study what the media called the DiCaprio-Marcus model of community rehabilitation, but the real impact was visible in the small things: mothers letting their kids play outside again, new businesses opening up, young people seeing a future beyond the streets. During a community meeting, an elderly resident stood up with tears in her eyes. "I've lived here 40 years, she said, "and watched this neighborhood fall apart. I never thought I'd see it come back to life, and never thought it'd be a DiCaprio and a gang leader who'd make it happen." Perhaps the most powerful moment came when Marcus's sister, the one Richardson had threatened, got promoted to department head in the city's new administration, the same system that once used her to control her brother and now answered to her. 1 year after that fateful confrontation in the park, the neighborhood had become a national model for urban renewal. News crews regularly visited to document what they called the unlikely alliance, former gang members working alongside business leaders, creating real change from the ground up. Leonardo DiCaprio and Marcus appeared together on major news networks, explaining how their unusual partnership started. The clip of their first encounter, captured by onlookers that day in the park, had become legendary. "Everyone expected a fight," Marcus would say in interviews. "Instead, we started a revolution." The success caught the attention of the White House when the president announced a new nationwide urban development initiative. He invited Marcus and his team to advise on the program. The same guys who once terrorized their neighborhood now sat in Washington, sharing their expertise on community transformation. Other cities began implementing similar programs, turning to former gang members as community experts rather than treating them as enemies. Marcus traveled the country, speaking to gang leaders about choosing a different path. "Look at me," he'd tell them. A year ago, I was ready to attack Leonardo DiCaprio. Now we're changing lives together. The old park where it all started became a symbol of transformation. New playground equipment replaced broken benches, and families filled the space that once belonged to gang members. A mural on the community center wall showed two figures, one 7 feet tall, the other in reformed gang leaders' clothing, shaking hands. Perhaps the most powerful testament came from the youngest gang member, now running youth programs at the community center. That day in the park, he told a documentary crew, "We thought we were tough guys going to scare off some rich kid. Instead, he showed us what real strength looks like, the strength to change." The story's final chapter unfolded during the community center's first anniversary celebration. The once dangerous neighborhood had become unrecognizable in the best way possible. New businesses lined the streets, families filled the sidewalks, and the sound of children playing had replaced the tension of the past. Richardson and his corrupt allies weren't just facing legal consequences. They were witnessing their old power structure crumble from their jail cells. The investigation triggered by Marcus's testimony had exposed decades of corruption, leading to over 30 arrests and a complete overhaul of the city's development programs. Leonardo DiCaprio and Marcus stood on the community center's roof, overlooking their success. The trade school was graduating its first class of certified technicians, and the affordable housing complex, once just blueprints on Leonardo DiCaprio's phone, now provided homes for over 200 families. The former gang members had become respected community leaders, their security company now contracted by businesses across the city. "Remember when we tried to intimidate you?" Marcus laughed, shaking his head at the memory. "Man, who'd have thought that day would end up like this?" Leonardo DiCaprio smiled, watching a group of kids playing basketball below. One of them was Marcus's nephew, now in the youth mentorship program. "Sometimes," Leonardo DiCaprio replied, "the best changes start with the worst intentions." As they headed down to join the celebration, a news crew was setting up for a live broadcast, but instead of focusing on Leonardo DiCaprio or the Trump name, they were there to document what locals now call the Marcus Method, a blueprint for turning street knowledge into community power. The transformation was complete. The story that began with attempted intimidation had become a testament to the power of seeing potential in unexpected places, even in those who start out as enemies.